to the idea, because when they're talking about it, these Dyson spheres, they're saying that it's obviously most likely not the case. But would you agree with that? Because they say there's 7 stars. I don't know if that includes Tabby star or if these are in addition, but they recently came out and said that they had found 7 candidates that could be potential Dyson spheres because of their irregularities in their dimming and their brightening that just couldn't be calculated with planets because it's not cyclical. Are you open to that being a possibility?
Of course. Because, if you're an alien civilization and you're working toward acquiring more energy to get out there in the universe, because energy is the name of the game. If you have energy, then that not only dictates what technological level you're at, if you can acquire more energy from your star, then you are going to move up in the Kardashev levels. Obviously, that's certainly not the game they're playing. They don't even know what they are, but they just know they need a lot of energy. So if they do that, okay, then they're going to certainly discover that more energy means more capability, right? Who wouldn't? And so the more capability means that they would then be able to travel interstellar. And we're not even there yet, obviously. We're about 300 years from being able to say that we could fully get off of fossil fuels and so forth like that and move to fully renewable sources. I wrote a book called The Populated Universe. And in that book, I detail Gulf Stream windmills underwater that could slowly turn and generate very high torque, turn high torque motors that would generate electricity. I detail wave bobbing devices that create energy as they're bobbing in the waves. I mean, there's companies doing that part of it too. And when you go to a fishing, like a harbor, you'll see there's floats that are on. There's like a concrete pier, then there's a float, and it rides up and down with the tide. And it goes down as the tide goes. Well, that area here where the roller is, it's going up and down inexorably all day long, every 12 hours. Okay, that rotation mechanism is a potential location for a high torque motor to work all day and all night, every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and generate some level of energy. And you could generate this from anything where you feel tides. If you had something underwater, okay, as the tide comes in, it's going to bob it around and it's going to generate a little electricity. But then as the tide comes in, this float keeps rising. All right. Then as the tide goes out, the float sinks. Okay. So either way, it can drive a high torque motor. Right. And would generate electricity. Now imagine 500,000 of them on the, out in the currents somewhere, generating out in the middle of nowhere where nobody goes, where nobody cares, where there's no animals that are impacted. And now you see we can actually create a lot of energy. And you don't need these windmills that you sit there and go, oh, they're destroying my image of the Cape. This is how I see windmills offshore. Personally, I think windmills are actually really a fabulous invention, right?
I do too. I like the way they look too. I don't understand why people get all upset about it. But
it has to do with having money. I don't want to see an offshore oil rig. I don't want to see a windmill.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. I'm all for windmills. Just don't put it on my view.
Yeah. Do you know how much I paid for this coastal view? That's
right. Well,
the name of the game.
The value went up because you have access to renewable energy.
Oh, yes. And why do you think it is that, and I hate to go this way, but if a guy like you can think about this and come up with all these ideas, right? Mainly like just ideas that if put to test, right? Could potentially, help us in this, what I call energy crisis, right? So why is it that the U.S. government is seizing so many patents when it has to do with alternative energy?
Oh, that has to do with money and power. Okay, that's just the utilities. I know a guy, a professor who created this really novel windmill, And it was very different from the current thinking, very compact. You could buy them and put them in your yard and stack them on top of each other because they're little discs. And within each disc, there was little impellers. It would spin this incredible impeller that would actually generate energy, and it would turn into the wind and everything. And you can stack them on top of each other. And here in the state of Connecticut, the electrical utility did a study and found they're extremely efficient and fantastic at generating power. So where are they? Well, the government wanted to buy up the patent. I should say the utility wanted to buy up the patent. And they wanted to do that because if people use the windmills, they wouldn't use their power. So it's about money. So that's why they buy up patents. And guess what? When we start running out of power, they're going to show up. Look, we're knights in shining armor. We have this windmill concept we've been developing.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. There's that. And it's actually very practical. In fact, when Connecticut wouldn't play ball with them, he moved to Texas. You know?
Huh. But isn't the patent office... Does it matter what state you're in?
No. But Connecticut, the power utilities in Connecticut. Okay.
Oh, they were the ones that were. Okay.
And they were being resistant to implementing them and putting them up because they already have a set of infrastructure in place that they're making lots of money with, and they're not going to interrupt that or cause anything to change because they have shareholders. You see, fat cats who don't want to see change. They just want to rake in the money.
Back to the old J.P. Morgan Chase, Tesla, and Ben Franklin debate, right?
Yeah, that's right. And Thomas Edison.
Thomas. I don't know why I said Ben Franklin. Thomas
That's okay.
Edison. That trio. J.P. Morgan Chase was, if you couldn't put a meter on it, then what good was it to him? Not really. And have you ever? What's your thought? What are your thoughts on Tesla? Do you think that he was a man ahead of his time? And do you think that some of, how the FBI raided and took everything? Do you think there is something fishy there?
Well, first of all, I know a little bit about Tesla because with Doug Trumbull, we did a movie about Tesla up at Niagara Falls, actually, because there's a big statue of Tesla at Niagara Falls, if you've never been there. And he was very instrumental in obviously making a lot of strides in electrical production and generation. And so at the Moses Power Facility, that's 300 feet underground, under the ground there. We were there. It's got Robert Moses facility. And we were in there, and it's like a quarter mile long underground, of tunnels, one tunnel. And all the turbines are overhead from the Niagara River that's coming down and just cascading tons of torrent. So we got to we did a 3D movie actually there with Doug. And the movie was all about Nikola Tesla. And I think that there's a lot of his concepts which probably were buried and probably have not resurfaced because, well, he lived in the old days. Right. Except we have charged particles coming down over our north and south poles every single day from the sun. These charged protons and electrons coming down from the sun are spiraling through our magnetic field, going into the bedrock and transmitting current through our ground. Okay. This is what takes out substations and causes blackouts during high solar activity, is these charged particles coming down into the atmosphere, going into the bedrock, riding up transmission towers.
I'm so glad. So I'm sorry. I'm so glad you brought up the sun in that way. You just kind of sparked something. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fair. So if there's power that's sort of coursing through the ground because of ordinary geophysics and the way the sun works, then why can't we tap that too? It's there all the time. It's always there.
Literally always there.
Yeah. And so if we could figure out a way to tap it properly, Tesla claimed he could. And if we can figure out how to tap it, well, then we could probably use it. Now, obviously, there's geothermal. Geothermal is dependent on magmatic movement underground and stuff, and that's only temporary because magma movements change over time. That's why the Hawaiian Islands look like they are. That's why they're islands,
Right.
and that's why islands are in chains because the hot spot under the mantle is coming up, making an island right there. But then as that plate moves above the hot spot, the tectonic plate moves above the hot spot, a new island pops up in a different place. Plate moves, new island pops up. Plate moves, new island pops up. And that's why the Hawaiian Islands look the way they do. That's why the volcanic activity is right now on Hilo, which is the island of Hawaii. So the island, not because you got Maui and all the others, but because that's the youngest island in the chain. And so it's the most active volcanically. All right. So everywhere you see a chain of islands, you got to think about how they formed and think that maybe there's a hot spot in the mantle poking up through the crust, so to speak, and making an island right there. And as the plate moves across, another island can pop up, and then another one as it moves up and across and across and keeps going. So that process is something that has been discovered. And so hot spots stayed in the same place, but the tectonic plates move. So harnessing a hot spot would be a short-term thing we could do. We couldn't do it long-term because over hundreds of thousands of years, that hot spot is migrating because it's not migrating beneath your feet because you're moving above it. So geothermal is great, and so it's temporary. It works for like a number of human lifetimes, but it won't work for 1,000 years, 10,000 years, or a million years on a planet.
So it's not sustainable.
It's sustainable only for the time in which you're above the hot spot.
Right,
okay?
right.
You look at the sulfide chimneys in the bottom of the ocean, the black smokers, as they call them, spewing this dark material laden with minerals that these bacteria eat. And around them, the bacteria eat this stuff coming out, and the things that eat the bacteria are all around these beautiful black smoker, hydrogen sulfide chimneys. And so these sulfide chimneys are there because they're above a hot spot underneath in the mantle, just poking up and heating the water underneath and making it rise to the surface of the chimney. Well, that migrates because they're on a plate, and that plate moves. And when you look at a sulfide chimney, you can see all the dead ones that preceded it by following along the path of the direction of the tectonic plate. And you can see ancient sulfide chimneys that long died because they migrated away from that hot spot.
Wow.
See, so it's a dynamic Earth too, right? For that reason. So, yeah, I mean, it'll work within a few human lifetimes, maybe a few more. Okay. But over a course of long term, like 500,000 years, no, it's not good enough, right? Not that we care, right? Because you might, but we're thinking of long-term longevity of a race, of human race.
Right.
So I think that this type of thing is something that we could utilize in the short term. Now, like Yellowstone, you look at Yellowstone. The Yellowstone caldera is not where it's always been. The Yellowstone caldera has been migrating. Why? Because the North American plate is moving across the hot spot over which the Yellowstone sits. So the Yellowstone caldera, you can see the ancient calderas if you follow the chain. You can actually see them on the overhead maps. And so you should look into that because it's kind of cool.
It is cool. I love all that stuff. I really do.
It's neat.
It's so fascinating to me because, I think a lot of people, they go outside, they step on the ground, right? They drive across whatever, but they don't know that like the earth it's on the inside. It's like churning and moving, and we're also spinning at, what's the rate that we're like spinning through the solar system?
Well, we're rotating at 1,000 miles an hour, and at the equator. So I think it's kind of cool to see that. That's our rotation rate, and then of course we're moving around the sun, and then the sun's going around the galaxy. Right. Now we've moved around the galaxy in complete revolution around the galaxy about 19 and a half